Wayfinder is an action RPG with loot-based elements, a vibrant world, engaging storylines, large boss battles, and you can even build the character or characters of your dreams. So let's talk about Wayfinder and whether or not you should be excited about its recent 1.0 release. So, quick history lesson, Wayfinder used to be a live service game. It was being published by Digital Extremes, and it was aimed at being this sort of like Warframe / Destiny-like type of experience. But once Digital Extremes shut down their publishing branch, Airship Syndicate, the developers of the game, took over publishing rights and took over basically creative direction of the game. So once they did that, they switched it over to a single-player co-op style game where you could play by yourself, you can pause the game, there's an offline element, or you could join different groups of players by using the server browser. And this really resembled a Borderlands type formula. Now, once this happened, the game really started to flourish. It gained an identity, and it really kind of established itself as its own game. Now, they took all of the things that were previously slated for microtransactions and cash shop purchases, all of those things, and they put them into the game as lootable items, and they tied stats to them. That way you had chase items, a new armor set in the game that actually boosted your character, you could build around them, and it created a more holistic and welcoming experience. Now, fast forward to today, and Wayfinder 1.0 has launched, and this game is in a much better state than it was previously. What I'm seeing from my time with Wayfinder so far is a much more polished game that, like I said, has an identity, it knows what it's trying to accomplish, and it has a direction that it's trying to move in. It's a massive world. You have places to explore, you have different quests, you have side quests, bounty boards, mythic hunts, big boss battles, priority missions, there's a ton of stuff. And these will all take you throughout each zone, but there will be nooks and crannies for you to explore in search for loot. So with the history lesson out of the way, let's talk about what Wayfinder offers today for its actually pretty low price tag of $25. So when you begin, you're going to choose from one of the Wayfinders. After that, there's a total of 8 Wayfinders for you to unlock, and each Wayfinder has their own identity, abilities, ultimate skill, passives. They all have their very own unique kind of play style, so it's important to find the one that best fits you. And each one of these Wayfinders has different unlock requirements. Some you will have to go do a boss battle to get their summoning stone. Other ones will be out in expeditions or dungeons. Some are from crafting, some are hidden in chests, etc. There's all different ways to find these Wayfinders, so you need to go on a scavenger hunt to find the one that you want to unlock. Now, once you unlock a Wayfinder, you will get to keep it. It's yours to keep, and from there, you can continue to invest and do something called awakening to allow them to build up their stats, unlock new customizations, and even unlock increased power by investing in your character. There isn't any sort of pay-to-win element. There isn't any way to pay money to play the game. This is literally just going out and farming the crafting materials that are in-game and then taking those and investing them into that particular character. Now, the cool thing is, once you unlock one, you're not completely tied to them. You can swap between any of the 8 whenever you want, whether it's during missions, in a dungeon, in the town hub. You are free to choose whatever is going to fit you best for that particular thing. If you want to run a mission with one character and then switch over to a bossing character at the very end, you can do that. So there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of freedom, and that's one of the things that kind of pulled me in originally and has kept me here. Now let's talk about some progression stuff and upgrading. What happens when you level up a Wayfinder? So each Wayfinder has their own affinity system, has their own talent tree, and ability upgrades. Now the thing I want to start with is affinity first. So affinity is going to boost whatever affixes are tied to your weapons and your accessories, which are your gear in this game. Investing points into an affinity tree is going to boost things like weapon power, crit rating, crit power, maximum health, resistances, etc. But it doesn't just boost whatever affixes are tied to your gear. It will also unlock perks that you want to build around. So you can go look at the perks and go, oh, okay, I really want to spend 5 points into this affinity tree, but I want to go 15 points into this tree. That way I can get everything I want to build this character I want to build. So I really like it. I think it's a really cool system. And the nice thing is, if you don't like what you've built so far, you can easily reset all your affinity points and start over. So let's move over to our talent system, because this is another one that I really like. This is a newer system that they've added to the game. So your talent tree is basically this large Path of Exile looking tree that allows you to unlock minor nodes, major nodes, and prime nodes. Now you can only have one prime node unlocked at a time. These are generally very powerful, but you can unlock as many majors and minors as you would like. Now all of these will unlock or add stat bonuses. You also have some that will improve your character. They'll unlock new equip slots for your character. So you kind of want to plan around where you want to spend your talent points, because you do have a cap. So you want to keep that in mind. Next, let's talk about ability upgrades. So as you go through and you level up your Wayfinder, you're going to hit level thresholds, and once you do that, you will get an ability point. You can take these ability points and spend them on your abilities to unlock new either bonuses or passives for that particular skill. Now these will do things like increase the duration of certain abilities, add a burn element, cause larger explosions, or even combine two different abilities together. So in the case of Laura, one of the new characters, when she activates her ultimate, which is an avatar, she will also activate possession and gain the perks of possession. So you kind of get a 2-in-1 type of ability. Now again, just like affinity and talent, you can reset these ability points whenever you would like. So those are the Wayfinders. Now I want to talk about the gearing system. This is the fun part, right? If you're like me and you really want to equip your character and kind of min-max and do all these fun things, let's talk about the gearing, because this is where you're going to be spending a lot of time in Wayfinder. So gear in Wayfinder comes in 3 categories: armor sets, weapons, and accessories. So let's start with armor sets. Armor sets are the previously locked microtransaction items. That these were moved into what they call armor sets and then placed in the game as lootable items, and you can build around them. So the cool thing is, these are all different pieces of gear, and you're going to unlock them just doing whatever. Beating bosses, looting chests, completing missions, all of those things. Sometimes you get gear for the character you're playing, other times it's for a different character you might not have unlocked yet. They do range in rarity from normal all the way up to legendary, and then each one will have a pair of affixes tied to it that'll give you a boost in a certain category. And then as you go and you unlock the full armor set, you're going to gain an armor set bonus that'll give you a boost to whatever theme that set is. For instance, if you equip an entire set that is a theme of ability power, you'll get a boost to ability power. And you can feel free to mix and match these as much as you would like. For instance, if you have a chest piece that has weapon power, but you'd much rather have crit, then you can change and equip whatever chest piece that you would like. Now, weapons are a little bit different than armor sets. From here, you can equip whatever weapon you would like. For instance, if you have a ranger character and you want to throw daggers on them, go for it. Two-handed swords? Why not? Sword and a shield? Sure. Really, it's up to you and whatever best fits your playstyle. Now, just know it might not synergize super well with whatever kit that character has, but you can do it. Now, weapons do have some randomly rolled elements, so each weapon is going to drop with randomized echo slots. We'll talk about echoes here in a moment, but they will drop with randomized echo slots, which is very important because different echo slots will be able to harness different echo perks. So again, we'll talk about those in a moment, but just know echo slots are randomized, and this is going to be a big deal for you as you go and do your build. Outside of the echo slots, you do have different affixes tied to weapons. These are going to roll a certain range of stats, so you do have a little bit of variety there. And then each weapon will have its own ability. Now, the weapon ability does not change, so every single tooth and claw is going to have the exact same ability. Now, lastly, let's talk about accessories. So accessories are your trinkets. These are things like necklaces, rings, etc. They do have stats tied to them. These stat categories are not random, but the ranges are random. So again, keep that in mind. Now, if you look down beneath the stat ranges, you'll also see set bonuses for equipping all of the different pieces of a matching set. If you do that, there's a bonus. Sometimes it's multiple. So for instance, like weapon power, break power, and crit rating. Other times it's one big massive boost like max health, for instance. Now, because there is a 2-piece and a 3-piece bonus, make sure to look through and kind of figure out what you want. So there have been some instances where a 2-piece bonus is great because you can capture that set bonus, and then you can also get one really big, like super upgraded accessory that doesn't have a set bonus, but it has a large boost to a single stat. Now, just like weapons, accessories do have randomized echo slots as well, so that's a great transition into echoes. I spent a lot of time talking about these, and for good reason. Echoes are the fuel that makes your build go. These are dropped very frequently. They're dropped from defeating bosses, they're dropped from defeating enemies, and they're incredibly powerful. There's a lot of different types and a lot of different echoes out there. You have, for instance, sword echo slots, which are more attack types. These are things like crit, weapon power, ability power. You have guard types, which are a shield. These are more focused on defense. So you get the idea. There are different types, and these different types have different stats that you can equip. But the thing I do want to talk about is an echo type called rush. Your rush slots, these are echoes that'll give you an on-trigger ability. So for instance, you have some that are fairly basic. On-trigger would be equipping this echo gives you plus 30 to your maximum stamina. Great. You have other ones like the Renegade, which whenever you do a heavy slam attack, which is jump and then use melee and you slam down to the ground, you're going to summon a big swarm of rats that are going to deal physical damage, and then they're going to inflict a poison that does ability damage. So you have these different ones that are going to cause different things to happen. And the cool thing is you have one of these for your character and you have one of them for your weapon. And then as you continue to invest in your Wayfinder, you can actually unlock another rush type slot, which gives you another on trigger ability. So you have a max of 3. This is where a lot of synergy comes into play, because these things can work together really well to just wipe stuff out, or you can just throw a bunch of unequipped ones on to give yourself some nice big boosts to whatever stats you're looking for. So the last thing I'll talk about for Echo are a couple different things. We have Echo capacity, so there is a cap to what you can equip Echo-wise. Each Echo will have a capacity cost, you just have to stay underneath your cap. There is something called Echo Fusion, will allow you to upgrade your echoes to make them more powerful versions of themselves. You can break down any echoes you don't want into dust, and then you can take that and infuse it into the echoes you do want to make them more powerful. And lastly, we have Echo Rarities. The higher the rarity, the greater the stats, and sometimes the higher cost of the echo itself. So that's everything that goes into building your character. Let's talk about some of the actual gameplay loop for Wayfinder. So one, let's talk about getting around. So the world is massive. There is a ton of stuff. There are multiple zones, multiple areas, and then throughout these different areas are world events. These are things like boss battles, puzzles, wave-based events, take an item from point A to point B without getting attacked, these type of things. And it just gives the world a lot more life and makes it a little more enjoyable because you can time these things. And some of these events you will have to go do because they drop certain crafting materials that you can use to then awaken both weapons and your Wayfinders. So that's the world. Now, getting around the world is actually pretty simple. You can use fast travel points called signal fires. Once you unlock one, you can always travel there. You can also get around on feet. You can also run on mounts. So there are mounts in the game. But one of the big things you're going to be doing out in the world are visiting gloom gates. So gloom gates are these massive kind of teleporters, right? It's an entry point to what's called a lost zone. Now, lost zones are instanced areas. You have dungeons, which are called expeditions, and then you have boss battles, which are called hunts. Now, expeditions, these are dungeons, they're fairly massive, and again, there's a lot of randomized events, there's certain vendors you can find, there's secrets, there's unlockables, there's all sorts of stuff you can do, and all of them will end with a boss battle. Once you finish the boss battle, you get your rewards, and then you get out. Now, the hunts are going to be very straightforward. It is just you going straight into a boss arena and then fighting a boss and hopefully winning, and then getting all of your loot as well as rare crafting materials. Now, one of the cool things is for expeditions and hunts, you can do things called imbuements. Imbuements will augment whatever you're running, whether it's a hunt or an expedition. These will add mutators to the actual content itself, making life a little bit more difficult. For instance, it'll add things like enemies will deal extra burn damage to you. There will be these like random poisonous flowers that'll spawn and drop these poison puddles on the ground that you have to work around. There'll be a trickster that'll drop bombs on you that you have to work around. You can cause enemies to explode when you kill them. So there's all sorts of different things you can do. and you can combine these together. So for instance, if you take a solar or a fire imbuement and you combine it with a poison imbuement, then those form a brand new mutator that'll cause these like big fissures of toxic poison in the ground that'll pop up and deal damage. So mixing and matching these is going to be something to keep in mind as you're working through your build in your Wayfinder. Some will deal better with others. For instance, ones that randomly pop up all over the place and you need to move quick, you want a Wayfinder that has good mobility. Or if you are dealing with ones that are going to deal a high amount of damage, then you want a Wayfinder that's a bit more tanky and can take a beating. So just understanding what your strengths and your weaknesses are and then using those imbuements to kind of offset those a little bit, it's something you're going to want to do. Now the question is, why do you want to do imbuements? You get an experience bonus. So using these imbuements are going to give you an XP boost, which will then allow you to level up your Wayfinder more quickly, which will allow you to get more talent points, affinity points, and ability upgrades. Now, one thing I will say right now is the end game for Wayfinder is pretty straightforward. You have something called Mythic Hunts, and Mythic Hunts are harder versions of boss battles that'll drop a new currency called Glory that you can then trade in for legendary weapons and even a heroic version of one of the Wayfinders. And this is something I really like. These boss battles are very fun and they're not easy, and you have to kind of build your character up to be able to go and challenge them. So I like it. Overall, guys, if you're looking for a fun single player or co-op game to play with some friends, this is a great one to look into. The world is vibrant, there's a ton of stuff to do, the story is good, the loot is good, the characters are interesting, and you can tell the dev team has a lot of passion for the project they're putting together. Now, this game's been at the top of my list for a while because, I mean, you don't have to keep up with the Joneses to play it. You don't have to spend money in game to keep up. You don't have to have a ton of time to keep up. You just have to have an interest in playing. You don't have to build a certain way. I can play the game how I want to play it, and the fact that it's a $25 one-time purchase makes it an incredible value. And I know this is going to come off as a little promotionally and ad and sponsory, but it's not. This is just a game that I really enjoy playing, and I'm trying to get the word out because I think if you give it a chance, a lot of people will enjoy it too. So anyway, let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. As always, I appreciate you guys. This has been Vulkan, and I'll talk to you next time.